Today we talk about another game that Nate gave me because he was tired of it. Welcome to Tabletop Shop.
And welcome back to the Tabletop Shop Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Mr. Nate Clark, and as always, although this might change soon, seated halfway across the world from me is your other co-host, Mr. Cody Pennington. On today's show, we are going to talk about a game from AEG Games by John DeClaire, and that is Space Base. And then we will do a bit of a dive into a list talking about some 10 mechanisms in the games that represent those most. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. And if it doesn't, you better stick around anyways. Cody, how's it going, my friend?
Dude, let me just say, you nailed the new intro format. Because that wasn't rehearsed. I guess it was rehearsed once where we just botched the whole thing, but that's all right. That doesn't count.
And that wasn't my fault, the botch either. That was you talking over me. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So yep. Anyway. Hi, dude. How you doing?
I am doing great. You know what? I feel like half of our episodes start this way, but it has been way too long since we recorded an episode.
I know. This is abnormal because this episode, when it comes out, it's going to be a few days after we recorded it, which may be a record?
It probably is. Even our first couple episodes probably weren't that snappy. But,
yeah.
Yeah. No, the last time we recorded, I was in a barn in Switzerland.
Oh, really? Was that the last one?
That was the last time, man. Yeah.
So slightly better acoustics now.
Slightly better. Yeah. I don't remember. I think the audio wasn't too bad. That was the viticulture episode that just came out. Yeah. But, yeah, back in Germany. And if all goes well, she'll be back in the States in a week or so, hopefully. So in theory, the next episode could be recorded in person again, Cody. Should be,
dude,
I would say.
That would be crazy. Across the table from each other?
It'll be back to across the table. That's insane.
Although you should see my current like studio setup. I've actually got sound panels on the wall. I have these little, not retractable, but like collapsible sound curtain things that I have set up to complete the circle. It's pretty nice. So if you record it in person, I would have to downgrade my own professionalism in order to speak with you.
Way to shoot down my fervor. All right.
But hey, there'd be more energy in the show, so that's fine.
Yeah. You can't beat the face-to-face conversations. That's for sure.
Nah.
All right.
And we could turn on our webcams right now, but that would probably increase our latency. Or latency.
You said latency once in an episode like a long time ago, and I didn't know if you were saying it as a joke because sometimes you do that. But it's pretty sure it's latency. All right.
Well, it's one of those words that you read a lot, but you don't necessarily hear pronounced, and so you have your own assumption for how it goes. You know.
True. Yeah. I had that with paradigm. I used to pronounce it paradigm because I'd read the word, but I'd never heard it used. You know.
One for me is the word narrow. I for some reason I always thought it was narrow.
I feel like that word's a little more common than paradigm. But
I know.
All right.
Yeah,
you know what? It's no longer the intro, but I have an intro question for you.
Okay,
Cody.
do it.
And Heaven and Ale versus Tokaido. All right. I don't know how long it's been since you played either of these games, but I want you to tell me which one utilizes the ratchet mechanism better. And this is a great intro question because this is a mechanism we won't be talking about during our top 10 list. So
well played. Did you think about that in advance?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's good. Interesting, because I like Heaven and Ale more than Tokaido, but let me think about how they incorporate the system.
Yeah, we're talking about the ratchet mechanism specifically, not the game as a whole.
Because Heaven and Ale, you can wrap back around the same track, which is interesting.
True, and Tokaido is just a start and finish.
Yeah, and Tokaido is a bit repetitive in the things you can do. I'm going to go with Heaven and Ale. I prefer the continuous ratcheting system as opposed to a single track. I might change my mind if I think about this more later, but I don't want to spend 5 minutes just being quiet thinking.
I think I would say if there were more unique spots in the Tokaido track, that might be... If it had more unique spots than Heaven and Ale, then that might be something that would tip the scales for me. But it definitely does not. Yeah.
You've played both? You played Tokaido?
I have, yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember that for some reason.
Heaven and Ale is definitely the better game, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of... Definitely not a huge fan of Tokaido. Heaven and Ale I like, but I don't love. So I don't know if I'll ever play it again just because... Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be in a position where that's the game amongst the ones I have to choose that I want to play.
Sure.
So, all right. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? Do you care?
For new games we've been playing?
Yeah. We're going to have to be quick, probably.
You know what? I'll hit us off so I can set the pace and I can go.
All right.
How's that sound? Okay. Dude finally played Obsession. Obsession.
Gloomhaven?
What?
Oh, I thought you said a session. Obsession. Gotcha.
No, Obsession. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, Obsession. It surprised me with how different it was. I think I told you I got Barrage and Obsession about the same time. It might have been the same shipment, actually. And Barrage definitely, it hurts your brain a bit more when you're playing it, but it was a lot easier to pick up. Obsession legit took Kirsten and I like 3 times as long trying to, from a video and like a rule book, try to figure out what you're supposed to do and how this works because it's so different.
Yeah.
I could probably spend a lot of time getting into this, so I won't really do that. But it's you have different style workers, but it's not really worker placement because you're just selecting different spots on your own tableau, I guess, each time. And then depending on these events that you're hosting, those are the worker places. They let you invite a certain amount of guest cards from your hand, and that basically is the core of the game, of being able to use your events well and then the effects of the people you're playing from your hand to do stuff. And again, it's just very different. It felt very different from most games I've played, and I love it.
How do you like the look and feel?
It's okay. Kirsten particularly was very upset to see that all the pictures of the people and the guests. I think they're hand drawn, but they look like they're in the style of like old portraits or even like black and white photography from like way back
I'm looking
in the
at
day.
it. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm kind of more indifferent to that. I didn't really dislike it, but it doesn't really steal my heart.
It doesn't seem to fit the theme, actually. Because it doesn't have a clean... The cards, I think maybe just the graphic design on the cards is bad. And we shouldn't talk about this too long because somebody listening to this may not be able to look at this for reference. But in general, I don't think I like the graphic design too much. But
I'll allow it. All the other components besides that are very high quality and look pretty dope.
Yeah.
Especially the inserts in the box. But yeah, the cards themselves are meh.
All right.
So anyway, played Gugong. It's been a little bit now, so I'm kind of forgetting how all of it goes together.
Great game,
I did tell you. It was moderate. I'm not going to get rid of it, but I probably won't play it super often. That was an odd game that I was telling you about previously through a different conversation where it's a point-based game, so whoever has the most points wins, but you don't even qualify to be a victor unless you've advanced far enough on a certain track. It's like you're trying to gain an audience with the emperor. And that was pretty unique and that was pretty cool. The rest of the game's pretty straightforward, not particularly innovative, but that was a cool mechanism. I got a bit of a step down here to Catan the dice game.
You played it, all right.
I did. But hey, it was $1 at a yard sale. That's a pretty dope deal if you ask me. Basically any game for $1. Maybe not Era of Kingdoms, but Catan the dice game.
There are definitely some I wouldn't buy, ever. But, yeah, sure.
I guess if you would see yourself playing the game at least once, then that's worth $1, right?
Listen, a game that I've never played, I'll buy any game I've never played for $1. All right? But if it's Monopoly, no thanks. If it's, Pandemic, no thanks.
Dude, you mean you don't go into Goodwill looking for games?
I do.
You just buy every copy of Apples to Apples and Monopoly and...
No, I do, but our Goodwills are terrible in our area for that.
I know. I've never found a good game at Goodwill.
Ever.
And finally, I've played twice Floriferous. That was pretty good. I guess you'd call it a set collection game, but there's also objectives you're trying to complete that you can qualify for additional points, and then there's some competitiveness for who has the most of a certain thing will be able to score one or two extra bonuses. But plays very quickly. The box says 20 minutes, and I think that fit the bill pretty well. We might even have played it faster since it was just two people.
Is it
like 15.
Is it worker place? Or I'm sorry, is it card drafting? I'm guessing.
It is card drafting. It's card drafting where there are 5 columns of cards set up every round, and you play 3 rounds. And then you advance to the next closest column and just pick a card anywhere on the column. But it's sort of the King Domino style, where if you take a lower card, you're going to be later in the drafting order for the following turn.
The whole setup looks very meta-y. It's even got like landscape cards on the top, and the iconography is kind of similar. Yeah.
It is pretty meta-y, but I would probably rather play this over Meadow. I'm just going to say that.
Well, that would be a game that you gave to me, so that checks out.
Aha! So those are my games. How about you? What you got?
All right, I'll start off with an easy one. I may have mentioned this game before, but this is a different version of the same game. This is Timeline Historical Dates. Timeline is a little card game where you have it's a huge stack of cards, and all the cards have, depending on the theme. So this one is historical dates. So all the cards on one side have the title of some historical, event. And then on the other side, it tells you what date it is. So you get a hand of cards, and you don't look at the dates. You look at the side that just tells you the event. And then there's one card in the middle, and you take turns placing a card out either somewhere in the timeline that's in between you. So the timeline gets bigger and bigger as the game goes by. And you're trying to guess, or, using your knowledge that you have, trying to correctly input cards from your hand into the timeline. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's fun. It's kind of educational, and there's lots of different expansions. There's like a cinema version and historical dates and inventions, and they can all be mixed and matched. So yeah, pretty fun.
Dude, I completely forgot about that game. You and I played the original.
Yeah. Like
the 2012 version. You brought that over.
It's a very good game for it's a very good party game kind of, because you can play with pretty much as many people as the deck will allow, which is a lot. It takes literally 1 minute to teach, and it's fun, So it's a great little game, and super cheap, of course, too. So I played the always bland Ticket to Ride. I played 2 two-player games, and I got bored halfway through both of them. Played a 4-player game then, and that was much better. It held my interest the whole time. But in general, base Ticket to Ride, like North America, is boring. It's just like, okay, it's an older game, so I get that, like, back when it came out, like, I don't know what, there were less things to pick from, so I guess you liked it more. But nowadays, even Ticket to Ride Europe, I don't love that much, but it's still the far superior version because it kind of has some mini expansions and stuff. So, yeah, Ticket to Ride, whatever. I played That's Very Clever, or Ganz schön clever, whatever. It's a roll and write, and it's similar to Quicks and probably some other roll and writes where you roll some dice, you separate in some way, and then you roll again. You roll 3 times total, and you do something with some of the dice you collected, and then everyone else gets to pick one of the other dice and do something with it. And so there's like 5 different colored dice and 5 different sections on your board, but there's they affect each other a lot. There's like tons of little bonuses that affect the other sections of your player sheet. So you can get lots of little, like, kind of Castles of Burgundy style bonuses where it's like, okay, I put this number here, which lets me put any number I want in yellow, so I'll put this number here, which gives me this bonus, whatever, all with one action. So that's fun. It's a good game. We played it a few times, but, that's it. I'm done. I liked it, but, whatever. Probably better than Catan the Dice Game. I'll say that.
I'll allow it.
Played Dr. Knizia's Blue Lagoon. I had never heard of this, and we were at the library here, and I saw it on the shelf, saw Knizia's name, and I was like, I'm obligated to try. Knizia is interesting because most of his designs that I've played have a similar feel where the rules in general are pretty simple. Like, they're pretty straightforward, pretty simple, doesn't take long to teach or comprehend, but the way that they interact creates a lot of, like, stressful, like, you know, a lot of situations where you're like, how is it possible that a game so straightforward could present you with so many, you know, difficult decisions throughout the whole game? So it's an area control game, and I won't say much more about it because, you know, it's not really worth going into, but I will say it's interesting playing area control games with 2 players that aren't specifically designed for 2 players. Like, this one plays 2 to 4, but the dynamic of 3 players playing an area control game is so different from 2 players playing an area control game, right? Because it's just a you versus me. And so anything that I could do that negatively affects you is the same as if something positively affects me, right? Whereas in a 3 or more player game, if I do something that negatively affects you, the other person could still have the upper hand on me. It might not be affecting them, right? And so that makes for a totally different game. But yeah, it's all right. It's a fun game, but probably not something I would ever own. And then the rest of this list is going to be the Carcassonne list, because I played Carcassonne Amazonas, which is one of their standalone titles. They have so many.
How many Carcassonnes are there?
Dude, like standalone Carcassonnes, I wouldn't even know. Like, probably at least 10, maybe more. And that's not including expansions, just like standalone different versions of the game. There's probably 10. But yeah, so I played that. It's not better than base Carcassonne, because Carcassonne has such a beautiful simplicity to it, you know? Like, base Carcassonne is not super complicated, but there's enough going on that every game is different and interesting, you know? So Amazonas, you're like kind of following the Nile, and you have to kind of like keep up with it, and you have a little ship that's on the Nile that kind of can get you other points, but in general, it kind of feels a little gimmicky, like, you know, they're just reskinning it and putting some weird rules in, but it doesn't feel as clean or as straightforward as normal Carcassonne. And then, because, you know, this is going to take too long, I played 5 new expansions for Carcassonne that I've never played before, which is saying a lot, because I've played a lot of expansions for Carcassonne. But I'll just run through them. I won't really talk about them much. Crop Circles, Messengers, Mage and Witch, the Gold Mines, and Fairies are all little mini expansions I played for it, because we were staying somewhere they had the big box. And so there were a bunch of, you know, mini expansions in there. One notable thing is that I set a high score in Carcassonne, all-time high score of 338 points.
I haven't played in so long, I don't know how good that is or not, but I'm assuming it's good.
Base Carcassonne with no expansions, like, maybe you'll score 150 in a 2-player game. So yeah, definitely more than double what you would normally get.
Do you record your high scores for games?
I do now. I do as of this calendar year. I started in January, keeping track of all my plays, wins, my win-to-loss ratio with Anna, and high scores. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so how I do it is if I'm playing a game that there's a base game and then there's expansions. Usually expansions in a point-based game are going to let you earn more points.
Yeah,
usually.
Right. If they don't, that's weird.
Yeah, that would be very weird. So I actually keep separate high scores for what I get for the base game and then for what I get with the expansions.
I respect that, but I think I'm not interested enough to differentiate. Last but not least, I want to give a shout out to a game that is not a physical game, but you and I have been playing this game copious amounts. What does copious actually mean? Does it mean a lot, or just
copious? I think just means in
large
great portion.
Quantities? Okay, copious amounts of Elder Scrolls Legends, which is a 2-player head-to-head card game. Yeah, you can get it on Steam or just Play Store or whatever. Absolutely. I mean, it's phenomenal. I absolutely love it. And I wish that there was a physical implementation, even though there's a lot of stuff that the digital version does that, you know, you couldn't do cleanly in a
so hard
physical version.
Keep track of.
But I don't, yeah. Just wanted to give a shout out. If you are looking for a new game to get on your phone, definitely check out Elder Scrolls Legends. Love it.
Amen. Get it.
All right, Cody, we need to go talk about our game of the week, which is spoiled, but it's life.
Is it really spoiled though?
Well, I think the definition of spoiled is that people know ahead of time what. But if the plan was to tell them ahead of time, then maybe it's not spoiled. So we told them when we wanted them to know.
So anyway, let's go to our game of the week.
Terrible content. Okay, so usually the person who is more experienced with the game explains it, but I actually don't know who that is between us.
I would say you. Like, I think I owned it for a while.
Oh, you don't own it anymore?
And then played it maybe once or twice. Yeah, and then I sold it.
Oh, all right. How much you get for it?
I would guess probably like 15 or 20.
All right, not bad. Hey, that's 20 garage sale finds right there.
Dude, legit.
Or 2 copies of Firefly Shiny Dice.
Shut your face, dude.
Yeah, okay, so Space Base. I guess I'll give it a go, even though I have infamously messed up a rule.
Which we will definitely discuss.
Which has been discussed before on the podcast, but if you feel like it needs to be brought up again, I guess we can do that.
It does, because I think my outro line relates to it. So
yeah, that's true. Okay. So Space Base is heavily based on Machikoro. Machikoro, yeah, I'm not going to get into Machikoro. I've talked about it before, probably too many times on the podcast. But essentially you have a little board and you have like starting ships numbered 1 through 12, little cards. And on your turn, you roll dice and you produce resources kind of Catan style. So whatever number you roll, whatever card you have that fits under that number produces something. Usually just coins, sometimes points. And everyone else also produces, right? Yeah, everyone else also produces, but you can split the dice
sort of,
or you can add them together. That's that's probably one of the most unique things about this. So, because you have numbers 1 through 12. 2 through 12. No, 1 through 12, yeah. You have numbers 1 through 12 because when you roll your 2 dice, you can take the sum or you can split them and take the individual numbers. So this means your 12 cards, your 11, your 12 cards are super powerful because you have to roll an 11 or 12 to get them. But 1 through 6 are all kind of equivalent and moderately powerful because you have the same odds. Well, not entirely, and you have nearly the same odds of getting a 3 that you do a 2. Because if you just roll a 2 on one die, then you can take a 2. Or if you just roll a 3 on one die, you can take it. So there's a little more equivalency between numbers 1 through 6. But in general, I think that's a really cool thing to be able to split the dice like that. And it's a race to points. It's a space-based race. So you're racing to 40 points, but it's a tableau builder. So you're producing coins, and then you spend coins to buy upgraded cards, and then whatever number the card is for. Let's say it's for an 8. You take the card that's already in your 8 slot, and you flip it upside down and tuck it under your board. So there's a little bonus peeking, and then you place the new card on top. And so whenever you roll the dice, you get the current bonus. Whenever somebody else rolls the dice and it's that number, you get the upside down little baby bonus. So yeah, it's cool. It has Catan style production mechanism. But then it's a kind of tableau. I almost want to say deck builder, but you don't have a deck of cards. So
yeah, because you're not cycling anything.
Right. Yeah. So kind of just a tableau builder and a race to 40 points. So obviously we have interesting opinions on this game because we've both owned it and gotten rid of it.
Yeah, well, my opinion is that you can just get burned by the dice. Like you can play it all mathematically and you'd be like, well, 7s are very commonly rolled because math and stuff, and 6 are still commonly rolled because you can get them on both dice, or you can have combinations between the 2 dice of smaller divisions. So I'm going to put all these cards here, but then you never roll the dice you want on your turn. And I guess that's the trope that can damage a lot of dice-based games anyway. So maybe I'm not really complaining about anything unique. But I feel like this game can just burn you a bit more sometimes because it feels hard to do things.
Well, I think it's fair
at least over time.
I think it's fair to bring that up because there are plenty of games that utilize dice that you don't generally get burned on, you know? Like Castles of Burgundy or Black Angel are both games we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast. Those games both use dice, and it's not very common that you really get put in a position where you can do nothing, you know, with your turn or whatever. So I think it's fair, even though it is a common problem with dice-based games, I think it's fair to bring it up. And Catan suffers from the same problem, you know? Like, Catan's like, yeah, you might have built on a 6 and a 4 and a 5, but we're just going to roll 11s, you know? So sucks to be you. Yeah.
That'd be a great skit. Just saying.
Not that we do skits anymore. We could do a skit again.
Well, we do shorts now.
We do shorts now, that's true.
Check out our shorts, folks.
Some of them are board game related. Many of them are not.
Yeah. And more of them are becoming board game related, so there's no bait and switch going on.
But if you're tired of our board game content, you can go revitalize your interest in our YouTube channel by watching unrelated shorts.
Go look at Nate's Odd Ghost Gate in Israel.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'll go first to talk about the good here. Because actually there's a lot of good. I played this game quite a few times. Probably at least 10, maybe 15 times before I gave it to you. But in general, the game is mostly fun the whole time. If the dice are really screwing you, then you're just not producing anything and it's annoying, especially because other people are. So that can be really annoying. But in general, it's pretty fun, especially because a lot of times you're producing on other people's turns, or you might produce. And so you're always hooked. You're always like, come on, at least 1-3, you know? And so I like that. I like that a lot. Same with Catan. In a way, there's less downtime because you have to do things occasionally on other people's turns. There's also, I like the different strategies you can try out. Now, it could be that there is one, guaranteed, like, highest percentage chance of winning strategy, whatever. But every game's going to have that. It just might be a little easier to figure it out in this game. I don't think I ever cared enough to. I have my ideas, but I didn't like the game that much, so, but there are a lot of different strategies because you have, cards numbered 1 through 12. And so, you're going to buy, I don't know, maybe probably not more than 15 cards throughout the whole game. You might not even buy 15. And so you have to pick what numbers you want to invest in, And so you could try the 1 through 6 strategy, only investing in those because you're guaranteed to get something every time. Or you can try to go for bigger, mid-range cards, that there's a good chance they'll get rolled and you'll get pretty good bonuses. You can also go for the 11-12 kind of thing, to just get your bonuses in huge lump sums. So there's definitely a lot of different things to try out. There's also those permanent victory cards that you can buy, which is another strategy. You're not obligated to pursue that, but it's definitely a good option. So I like that there's a lot of different ways to approach it. I like the tucking cards thing. I think that's really cool. So every card, basically, when you buy a card, you're not just buying it for the ability it gives you right away, but you're looking ahead to the ability you'll get later when you replace it. And so that's pretty cool. And you're trying, that's another way to approach the game. Do you want to just save up and buy really good cards? Or do you just want to buy a bunch of cheap cards that go to the same numbers so you're building up a big stack on certain numbers, And so I really like that tucking part thing. It's pretty cool. And in general, the game's pretty easy to set up. There's some awkward shuffling because the cards are just weird, man. That is not a shape that cards should be allowed to be. No. I feel like the only thing worse would be triangles. They're like these really weird oblong rectangles. It's terrible. Yeah. But it's a pretty...
Tall and skinny.
It's pretty easy to set up, pretty easy to teach, too. Although the iconography is a little bit weird. All the times I taught this game, I found it difficult with, the red cube. There's all these different, action cards so you can put cubes on, but then some of the squares are green, some of them are blue, some of them are red, and they all have different functions, or they trigger at different times, and it's just you almost have to just wait until and just explain the cards as they come up during the game, instead of trying to explain everything from the get-go. So, yeah, that's a little awkward, but yeah.
Yeah, it, like you said, it does have some redeeming qualities that help somewhat mitigate that luck factor from the dice. and just offering different avenues of victory that you can try to pursue. I do like that a lot of the cards not only just have bonuses that just activate and give you something immediately, but there's cards that you can load up with little activation cubes. And so some of them, once you get them loaded up with enough cubes, a certain ability fires, or some of them you can collect cubes and then remove them to activate an ability later, like either on your turn or on someone else's turn. That's pretty cool and pretty innovative. There's even one, I think it's like a 12 card that once you get it loaded up with like 2 or 3 cubes, you just win.
Yeah.
Like the game just ends. So, I mean, that's pretty clever. Hard to get, but hey, kudos to the person who goes for it and gets it. Yeah, and then those yellow cards, man, those victory cards you were talking about. Yeah, you taught me real wrong. You taught me that you get those and then you can't replace them anymore, but you can just keep rolling and activating them continuously, though. But no, those point cards, they're a one-time bonus for points, and then once you roll that slot anymore, you get nothing. You get absolutely nothing. And that is a dramatically different way to play.
Makes for a very different game. Actually, what's funny, on our Way Brothers channel, I reviewed this game, and one of my complaints was that the game accelerates too quickly, and it's a tableau builder, right? So of course it's going to accelerate anyways. Like that's kind of the point, like the rate of the game. But I think playing the way I played it really
accelerated
for sure, and it made some of those cards way too powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But hey, we learned, and then we both sold the game. So
yeah, apparently it was worse the other way. Nice going, John D. Clare. Shows what he knows.
Oh, is that who made it?
Yeah.
Has he done anything else good? Let's look up.
He
John.
totally has. He's done a few games with AEG, and I'm pretty sure I've played one other one, but off the top of my head, I actually don't know what it is. But he's done quite a few games, and he's still actively designing.
I will say his profile picture on BGG is pretty epic. He looks like a mountaineer. He's got like a cowboy hat on.
Oh, wow.
That's all he did Ready, Set, Bet, which is a new craze nowadays.
It is. Space Base is his highest ranked game.
Yeah, looks like it. Well, go him. He's made stuff, including a game that we both sold.
And lots of other games that we've never bought or played. So good for him.
We'll see if we can have him on the podcast at some point, and we won't talk about this.
Yeah. Okay. Did you finish with your goods? I feel like I covered a lot of stuff when I mentioned.
Yeah, that probably basically covers my goods. Maybe I can throw some more bads at it.
Do it.
Those cards, man.
They're terrible.
Those cards stink.
Although the quality of the cards is good. The actual... They have a good, nice texture.
Yeah, a nice finish to them, or some sort of printing technique. But yeah, they're so tiny, and setup for the game takes a little bit. That probably is just because of the tiny cards.
Yeah.
Or I guess they're not necessarily tiny because they're pretty tall. It's just they're so skinny. It's just that odd, cumbersome shape. And both to shuffle.
And it makes the game... I think they did it because if they had been normal sized, the game would have just been too much of a table hog, right? Because if you're going to have...
That's a good point, because it's 6 cards wide, right?
What's 6 cards wide?
I think the columns, the main columns you're drafting from are 6 cards wide, plus the deck on the side.
Yeah, but also you have to think about your player board has to seat 12 cards next to each other. So if you use normal size playing cards, it's going to, not quite double, but it would have made your player board way bigger. And it's already decently sized, putting 12 cards next to each other. So I can understand. I feel like they should have made them shorter, at least. It would have made them less awkward to shuffle.
I don't know. Maybe they just wanted as big of a table presence as they could get without just pushing everything else off the table.
Without going too far, yeah.
That did remind me of another positive, though. I do like in the player mat and all the cards, so you have slots 1 through 12, right? Well, all the 1 cards have the same section of art. All the 2 cards have the same section of art. So once you put all of them together, it makes this like space mural, and it looks cool.
Yeah, you have kind of this galaxy art that is kind of rainbowy, from one side to the other side. And so, all the cards that go in their spots, the art is consistent. So that was a good call for sure.
And I do like the art on the cards themselves, kind of these goofy little, almost toy spaceships.
Yeah, it's kind of,
but I like
kind
how
of Galaxy Trucker, huh?
Yeah, very similar. But when you increase from, there's like 3 levels of cards. There's like the level 1 cards, level 2 cards, level 3 cards. If you have a card of a similar, let's just say occupation or what's the word? What's the word I'm looking
Class?
for, dude? Same class. There's a different word that I can't think of right now. But anyway, the same card of one of those at different levels, it looks better the bigger it gets. So yeah.
I don't remember that. Although now I'm trying to remember, is there any, because all the ships have names too, which was something they didn't have to do, but they chose to. I'm trying to remember if there's any parody jokes in the titles of the ship names.
I didn't notice.
In general, I
anything,
remember
but...
most of them just being kind of boring and uncreative, but which made me question if you're going to take the time to name all these different ships, but then you just name them like boring names that don't mean anything to the player.
Yeah.
It's like, why'd you bother?
Well, I don't remember how many of them actually had actual names. I remember all of them said like something class cruiser or something class tugboat or something like that. So it wasn't so much that they had unique names for every single card as it was just a designation in a way.
You know what?
Maybe the bigger ones had names.
It's still on my negative list because you don't sound confident enough to
I do
assuage
not.
me.
Have not played in a while. Assuage, good word, dude. Can you spell it though?
ASSUAGE.
Well played.
Oh, all right. Any more negatives, Cody?
No, I'm good. How are you?
All right. Well, you know what? I'm not on a weird chicken and broccoli diet, so can't complain.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks.
My bads are ones we've already talked about, so I'll be quick. Basically, the biggest problem I had is that it's a little too simple and a little too luck-based. And even now that we're talking about it and thinking about it more, maybe it's not too simple. There's a lot of different cards. Actually, I have respect to the amount of different content, the amount of unique content they put on the cards. Obviously, there's a handful of repeats, but there's also a lot of different things they did, and adding in those action cubes, cards that you can build up actions and use actions. Like that's pretty creative too. So actually in general, I think I would revoke that comment that it's too simple, but it's definitely too luck based. That's something you just have to know going into it. And so if you don't like being at the mercy of the dice, then it's definitely not your kind of game. That's for sure. Like I said, I played it 10, maybe 15 times. I'm glad I did. I don't regret buying it because I think it was a good experience and it was something my family liked a lot too. So most of the times I played, it was like a 3 or 4 player game. Introduced it to a lot of friends too. But in general, like I have no desire to ever play it again. I'm happy. And actually for a while, I was even looking at getting expansions because there's a couple expansions for it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
they're expensive too. One of them's like $40.
Really? Oh yeah, well one of them
the game itself is like $40.
One of them's like a campaign, implement some kind of Rise of Fenris style campaign thing, as well as
How do you make a campaign out of that?
I don't know, man. I feel like they've made campaign games out of more difficult. Probably there's like a campaign expansion for Catan the Dice game that you don't know about. So,
hey, if it's $1 at a yard sale, I'll get it.
I think it'll be more because it's probably out of print. But yeah, like I said,
yeah,
I really don't have a desire to play it again, but I don't regret purchasing it either. So kind of a weird situation to be in.
I did just remember another negative I have
right.
about the game. So let me throw this at you if you even remember this aspect.
Okay.
But you can collect currency in the game, like credits or
Yeah.
whatever they call it. But anytime you make a purchase, doesn't matter how much the purchase is, as long as you can afford it, you then just spend all your currency down to zero.
Yeah.
And that's not how life works. I mean, I know games don't have to be a perfect parallel to life. Like there's creative liberties that maybe don't really make sense, even thematically, but it makes for a more interesting game. But if I have a $20 bill and I go into Winco and I'm going to buy a $1 piece tea, like I don't just give them the entire $20 bill and then walk out. Like I get my change back, right?
Yeah. Here's what I'll say.
So if I have 20 credits and I buy a $3 or 3 credit card, like I don't want to just spend all 20.
Here's what I'll say. And I think the reason they did with this was to encourage people or to incentivize people into using the starting income mechanism. So there's something we haven't talked about, which is that there's this other symbol you can collect that bumps up your starting income. And so however high that cube is, your actual money cube can never go lower than it. So whenever it goes back to 0, however far you've moved your income up, if you've moved it up to 5, whenever you make a purchase, you don't actually go back to 0, you go back to 5, or wherever your income cube is, right? And so I feel like what happened is they came up with this income mechanism, and they're like, hey, this is pretty cool, but if people are getting change back on purchases, then there's really no reason to use the income thing, right? And so they're like, we want to put this income mechanism in, so you know what, we'll just punish people for not investing in the income mechanism. But the problem is, there's not very many of that symbol in the game, you know? And so you might...
There's not. It's hard to get.
And it's so funny because all of the tracks in the game, the points, the coin, and the income all go up to 40. But like, I've never seen somebody get more than like 6 or 7 on income. And sometimes you might really want income cards and you never get one the whole game, you know?
Nah, bro.
It's kind of funny. Yeah. But
they were just so excited about this mechanism that they're like, okay, we need to inconvenience all the players from a normal play style just so they have to try to utilize this one system that is very hard to access.
I feel like in general, maybe he should have kept that mechanism in his pocket and maybe used it for a different game that he built around that mechanism a little bit more instead of throwing it into this game. But I don't know.
I feel like it's now our responsibility to steal that and use that in a game of our own.
It's definitely our responsibility to have John declare on the podcast and let him know how we feel about it.
Let's do it. Dude, okay, I have a question for you. I feel like we've talked about this before, but the Game of the Week segment, is it just assumed that we'll pick a game that I guess is good for the most part?
What?
Is it an endorsement to have the slot of the Game of the Week?
I think I never viewed it that way, but in general, most of the games that we've both played are good games. And so it just kind of always happened that like anything we've both played, like the reason we've both played of it is because one of us played it and was like, this is good, I'm going to introduce it to the other person, right? So you have some exceptions like Heir of Kingdoms, you know? But in general, like most of our crossover is crossover because they're good games, you know? So, but I think I never viewed it as an obligation for it to be a good game. I think I once made a list of all the games that's crossover between us as far as playing. And like, we definitely need to hang out again, man, because it's not too long before we have to start reviewing like Doomlings and stuff. So.
No, stop. No.
So, yeah, we definitely got to hang out and play Wayfarers, man.
Let's do it. Well, yeah, I just wanted to ask because it almost seems kind of odd if that is the idea of the Game of the Week, and we're like, all right, and here is our Game of the Week, Space. What a mediocre game.
Freaking sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be kind of funny, though, to do, to alternate Game of the Weeks, like, between, like, games we love and games that are terrible. That'd be kind of funny. Yeah.
Sets the tone of the whole podcast. So every other podcast is like really upbeat, and the other podcast is like, this game will make you cry.
As long as we've played enough games in common, I feel like we'll never, like, you know, Galaxy Trucker will never be the Game of the Week because I don't know if you like it too much, but I played it once and like, no, thank you. So,
what if there's a Galaxy Trucker second edition?
Don't you dare, Cody. All right. I know it's been 2 months since I was in that barn in Switzerland, but it has not been long enough for that conversation to come back up. All right, we should move on.
What about Essential Edition?
We should move on.
Anyway,
just stop it, Cody. Come on.
Hey, dude, I'm trying to get us to our board banter. You want to do a board banter?
Were you trying to get us to our board banter? Were you building on a segue?
No, I wasn't, but now you're preventing us from getting to the board banter.
Okay,
so it's actually your
fault. You introduce it. Go.
All right. Games that are good representatives of different mechanism types.
Which means
right?
It's not necessarily our favorite game that utilizes the mechanism, but our favorite way that we've played the mechanism utilized in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah. I had a bit of trouble coming up with my list for this, just because if our main goal is a game that best represents or is an ambassador, perhaps, of a mechanism, it'd be almost too easy to make. So like tile placement, spoiler alert, is one we're talking about later. And I wasn't just going to put Carcassonne, even though I feel like that probably is the best representative of the tile laying game industry.
I think I looked at it a little bit. Maybe best representative wasn't how I viewed it so much as my favorite implementation of the mechanism. Okay. So like Carcassonne didn't even it crossed my mind. Like everyone, like you hear tile placement, the first word that comes into your head is Carcassonne. But instantly I was like, all right, what other tile placement games have I played? Because Carcassonne has a very bare bones. And like I said earlier, it's a clean system and it works really well and it has great replayability. But there are other games that have done tile placement more interesting. You know, Carcassonne's from friggin' 2003. So, you know, there's a lot of time to build on that. It's 20 years, you know, so.
Yeah. Tile placement building. What if that was a mechanism, dude?
Tile placement.
It was a tile placement game, but it was bag building as well. So you bag build your tiles and then you place them. And then you have to pick them all back up and shuffle them and then place them again every round.
So like Quacks, but with tiles.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You're going to have to cut that, Cody. Somebody's going to steal it. All right.
Dang it. Well, no, it's copyrighted now because I said it. So.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I'm protected.
There's a recent, this is board game news, so I'll bring it up, but I don't know too much. There's a recent development where somebody was kickstarting a game and this is current to like, I saw this the other day. They're kickstarting a game and one of the promo packs for the game had a parity pack for Wingspan. And Stegmaier didn't like one of the cards that was in the parity pack and asked him to remove it or something. And now the Kickstarter is at a standstill. It's been paused or whatever because there's kind of this like IP issue, you know. And also there's some problems because like they pulled direct art from Wingspan, like the feather icon and stuff they directly put on their cards. And so it's kind of a weird situation. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I think it's called like the fair use agreement. Like there's a certain extent where you can imitate or reference other things. But yeah, if you're actually stealing or utilizing direct iconography, then that might be a problem.
Yeah, but it's a little weird because I don't think that's specifically what Stegmaier's complaint was about. I think in general he was fine with everything, but there was one card or whatever that he didn't like. And so he kind of disputed that one thing. I don't know. Maybe somebody who's listening has more knowledge than I do, and they're laughing at me. But all right, Cody, we got 10, possibly 20 games to talk about here because I don't know how much.
Wait a second, dude. I've got to write down this tile placement building idea, deck building.
If you want tile placement building, look into Ginkopolis. I think it's called. Ginkopolis is like tile placement, but you can stack tiles on top of each other too. So you cover up tiles that are already out on the board. That's kind of unique. Yeah. It
kind of reminds me of a game idea that you had that you told me about recently.
Yeah.
Maybe that's for another time.
Maybe 5 years in the future.
Yeah, maybe we'll keep referencing all these game ideas we have, and then 30 years from now we'll actually publish something.
Be legendary. All right.
So anyway, who should start?
I'll start. So our first mechanism. They're not ordered in any way. Actually, maybe are they alphabetical? No, they're not even alphabetical. They're just random. Okay.
Nah.
Deck building is our first. And you're going to disagree with me big time on this one. Do you have a guess what I would pick for this that you would be 100% against?
Just don't put my game. I
didn't. I definitely didn't.
Did you pull a Dune Imperium on me?
No. Because the deck building is not that good in Dune Imperium, actually. That's one of the weaker elements of the game, I think. Okay. You know, you add like 7 cards all game.
That's why I would have been opposed to choosing that one.
Dale of Merchants is my deck building pick. Because I find it very interesting. Most deck building games, you're just adding cards to your hand. And there's usually a trash mechanism, like in Dominion, you know, like, yeah, you want to trash your estates and your coppers ASAP, usually. But in Dale of Merchants, you have to lay down 7, or 8, maybe, stalls, they're called. And every stall is made up of cards that reach the value. So the first stall has to be a value of 1, second stall a value of 2, third stall value of 3, whatever. And they have to be cards of the same color. And so you're building your hand to accomplish that goal, But the cards also have generally actions or effects or whatever that they do as well to the other person or to yourself. But the goal of the game is like the less cards you have in your hand by the time the game ends, the better you did. Like if you end the game by laying your 8 value stack, and those are the last cards in your hand, you played like almost a perfect game, you know? Not many other deck building games are you trying to really keep your deck at a minimal, you know, stack. Because also it's good to know what you have in your hand because you're trying to get cards together so that you can lay them down in their stacks. So it's not just like, oh, good cards, buy good cards, buy good cards. It's like, yeah, buy, but you know, like in moderation and try and lay stuff down too so that you don't have a bloated hand. Yeah, I found it pretty interesting. Also that you don't have to get rid of your whole hand at the end of a round. You can use some cards and you can hold on to as many as you want and then draw back up to 5. I like that too. So I found it pretty innovative.
Yeah. Definitely an odd pick for this category because it's very different from most deck builders.
Like I said, I think
I'll allow
maybe
it.
we approached it a little bit differently, whereas you saw it as best, like, almost like best introductory,
Sure.
you know, game for the mechanism. I was interpreting it more as like the most maybe innovative or interesting implementation of the mechanism. So our
Yeah.
list will have a little bit of a different tone, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll preface mine with saying that all of mine aren't necessarily best introductory games, as it is just if you consider this mechanism like it is implemented well in this
Okay.
game. It's a good example of it.
Okay.
So perhaps my list will be the more classic approach, and you'll be kind of the wild card.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. That being said, my choice for deck building, Nate, is Lord of the Rings, the deck building game.
What?
And I know we have some odd, probably both of us have some odd mixed feelings about this
Yeah,
game.
for sure.
But honestly, it really represents deck building well in that you're constantly drawing a new hand, putting them down, getting new cards, drawing a new hand, and just constantly cycling through, and your deck's getting bigger and bigger, and then you score points based off of that. It's very straightforward. Sure, there's some really annoying mechanisms, and you could very easily get burned to where you feel like, I might as well choose random cards, and I'll probably score just as well as if I try to actually have a strategy.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's a good representative deck building
So
game.
why would you pick this instead of Dominion then?
Because I didn't want to choose Dominion, because that's just the answer,
figured,
dude.
yeah.
Like duh.
There are certain ones that it's like you can't pick, like Carcassonne.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, like my tile placement is not Carcassonne
All right.
because I picked a different
Number
game.
2 is probably number 2, whatever. Our next topic is probably my favorite. Like I have literally 5 runner-ups for this because I was these 6 or no, maybe I have 4 runner-ups. So I was like these 5 games, like any of these could be number 1. This
I have 2 in case you picked
Yeah,
the one
okay.
that I picked. Yeah.
card drafting is something that like can be implemented in a million different ways, you know? And there's so many good, unique, and you know, as far as the games that we've played, we're probably just like, you know, it's the tip of the iceberg, but card drafting is always something that I'm like, oh, yes, card drafting, I want to play, you know? So, my pick for this, like I said, I had 5 that it could have been, but my pick is Abyss, and I'm fairly certain that this is not your
Ooh.
pick. The reason I picked
No, it is
Abyss
not.
is because within the game, there's 3 different styles of card drafting. So you have the first style, which is cards are flipped on the top, from the top of the deck, and you can take one or you can pass, take or pass, take or pass. When you finally take one, the leftovers slide down to the next segment of the board, and they go to their matching colored spots. And then on the next person's turn, they can do the same thing you did, or they can draft from the middle area. They can just take a colored stack from the middle area from the cards that slid down. And then finally, you have these lords on the bottom that you can use these little cards you've been drafting to purchase, which I guess I would still consider that card drafting. You use these cards to purchase these lord cards. So especially the top 2 and how they interact with each other, I find very cool. But yeah, just in general, having not just a card drafting game with an interesting way that card drafting is happening, but a card drafting game that has multiple approaches to card drafting within the game. So.
It's interesting because your previous pick for Dale of Merchants and now this one, both of those, I don't know if I've ever actually won playing these games.
You also haven't played them too much. Like, I think you played Dale Merchants once, and Abyss, like, maybe once or twice.
Twice.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I lost twice.
How many times have you played Abyss?
Probably 3 times, I'd guess.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's not a terrible record.
But that's what something I like about these. In general, I like games that when you teach them to somebody,
you beat them?
No. But in general, like, I like games that where you benefit from, like, as you play the game more, you learn more about the game and you get better at it, right? Now, there's something to be said for games where somebody who's intelligent and analytical can just approach the game their first time, and as long as they understand it, they can do really well. But because I understand that, like, okay, if you wanted to teach brass to somebody, it's going to be weird for you because you can either just completely smack them around the whole game, or you have to, like, still try and win, but kind of, like, you know, let off the gas a little bit so they don't have a terrible experience. So that's a negative side to games like this. But the positive side is that there's this benefit to playing the game over and over again. You learn more about it. You learn the strategies more. You can test out different things and see what works and what doesn't. So both Dale Merchants and Abyss, I feel like, kind of fall into this category where it's like the first time you play it, you probably don't really understand what the best, you know, strategic moves are. But once you play the games more often, you start to figure out, okay, this is what I need to focus on, kind of, you know. So.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about the game. It's decent.
Abyss?
I don't know. It never really tickled my fancy, I guess.
That's fair. 3 plays is that's a valid opinion.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that. Oh yeah, we're still doing card
Still
drafting.
are.
I was about
Yep.
to go to the next segment. Yep. All right. Let me hit you up with Seven Wonders Duel, homie.
Yeah, that was obviously on my runner-up list.
Yeah. I mean, very, very standard. Okay. My other runner-up was Nidavellir. I won't argue that point with you, but it was up there.
I also had Furnace, because Furnace just has an amazing mechanism for drafting, and Meadow and Targi were also.
Oh, I didn't even think of Furnace for some reason.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Furnace comes up later, I'll say that.
Whoa, I know which one.
Spoilers. All right. So anyway, yeah, just as representing card drafting, Seven Wonders Duel does an excellent job because that's basically all you do is draft cards. I guess technically you have 3 options on your turn. You can draft a card, or you can build a wonder, or you can just burn a card for money, but all of that revolves around card drafting.
Yeah.
And tableau building. This could qualify as a tableau
I think it
building
does,
game.
yeah.
Ish. Yeah. Yeah, and I've only played normal Seven Wonders, honestly, only once, I think. I really need to give it another try, so I wouldn't do super great at comparing the two of them, but my impression is that Seven Wonders Duel is a better representative of, well, maybe not. Because Seven Wonders, you're passing around cards between everybody, so it's just a different style of drafting.
Very different. Yeah, the original Seven Wonders has more of a, I don't know if I would say, I think it's a more of a basic way of card drafting, and I don't know which games did card drafting first. Seven Wonders might have been one of the first ones. I'm not sure. But yeah, you're just passing a card, hands around, take one, pass the rest. Seven Wonders Duel is a much more innovative card drafting mechanism, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, my pick, Sushi Go.
Sushi Go is like Seven Wonders, but even worse, even more basic drafting.
Very simple. Yeah. We've talked about Seven Wonders Duel plenty of times on this podcast, so
more.
Let's go ahead. What do you have for tile placement?
Tile placement. Carcassonne. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't you dare.
But I want to be clear, and I think in this episode more than any other, I feel like I am been quite clear. I like Carcassonne. Like, as far as like older games, like Carcassonne has aged really well compared to like base Catan, which to be fair is significantly older than Carcassonne. But Carcassonne has aged really well. Like base Carcassonne still holds up 20 years later. I think that's impressive. But
hey, I tell you what. Let me interrupt you. I will give you $1. I will Facebook send you money, $1 right now if you can correctly pronounce the designer's name.
Klaus Jürgen Vrede. Because the W is kind of
you kind of got it right like the third time through, so I'm not going to count it. I'm keeping my dollar.
I would have demanded Catan the dice game anyways. All right. My tile placement pick is Isle of Skye. Haven't talked about this one in a while, but I like Isle of Skye because there's one thing it does differently, and it makes the game look really weird, especially when you're used to something like Carcassonne. But in Isle of Skye, sides don't have to match. So you have like cities and you have roads and you have fields, whatever, but sides straight up don't have to match. Like you benefit from them matching, but you're not restricted to that. And so like if you walked by and saw somebody playing Isle of Skye and you looked at the game, you'd be like, I think you guys are playing this wrong, you know? But yeah, so it's pretty interesting. You place a lot less tiles, but also you're building your own little tile thing. Each person's building their own little tile structure instead of one communal one. But in general, it's a really fun game, but also I just like everything that is involved with the tiles in this game. I think is really cool. So.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it in a previous episode. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. Do you possess it?
I do not, no.
Well, we'll play it someday.
Someday, Cody.
Yeah. All right, well, my pick for tile placement is Carcassonne Star Wars. Just kidding. Okay. It's actually tapestry because you put down those little hexagonal pieces in the middle of the board. It's definitely a tile placement
You're
game.
lying to me still. Please tell me.
All right, third time's the try.
Third time's the try. Eloquent as always.
Kirsten said that one time, and now I always make fun of her. And sometimes I do it so much now that I actually say it incorrectly.
It's automatic.
When I try to
I
say.
love it.
Yeah. Anyway, Acrotiri was my choice.
Yeah.
A little bit of a different tile placement. These are big tiles you're putting down. They're like, you could fit 4 Carcassonne tiles in one Acrotiri tile.
I think that's what they based the ratio off.
Did they? It's like a direct correlation?
No, I was just like, no, I don't know, Cody.
Well, I thought you were onto something there. We could like do a mashup of Carcassonne and Acrotiri.
Okay. I'm still listening.
Yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, we talked about Acrotiri before. I'm pretty sure it was a game of the week on one of our earlier episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I won't beat this little dead horse. But just a good solid game. Like you can get this for I think it was like $20 probably right now on Amazon. I don't know if there's first or second edition or whatever it is.
Let's not get into that.
They tell you to switch out the different colored pieces. Yep, definitely won't get into that. But yeah, tile placement where you're working from these little map cards that just have basic indications of where a temple might appear on the map, and they're based off of different icons that are going to appear on this tile system that you're building, where maybe you need some red icons to the right, and then you need a gray icon to the left, and then 2 green icons above. And so you're sort of half working with the other player to try to put down these tiles to meet your own ends. Is that a real phrase, to meet your own ends?
Not gonna lie, Cody, I started zoning out. What are you talking about?
For your own means? We're talking about how to play Acrotiri, son.
I thought you said you weren't going to talk about how to play Acrotiri. Yeah.
Well, what are you talking about? I gotta say something about the game. You're building the thing so you can get the stuff and get the points, and it's fun because it's tile placement.
Good choice. All right, our next topic. Action selection is our fourth topic.
Yeah.
Of course, I almost went with Scythe, and I would not be surprised if you did, but you also might have picked Scythe or something else.
Nope.
I went with Kemet on this one. And I don't know if you remember the action system in Kemet, but
not really.
You have what is it? You have a triangle of action spaces. So I guess there's 4 on the bottom, then 3, then 2, then 1 at the top. And you have, I think, 5 or 6 different little tokens that you can use, maybe 6. And you place your tokens out on your turn, like every turn you place one out and you take an action and you cover up that action space. And so you already have a finite amount of actions, but it's not like it's competitive or something. But also you have to have at least 1 token in every layer of the pyramid. And so in every layer of the pyramid, you're going to have to take at least 1 action. And so that to me I found that to be a very interesting way of, you have a lot of freedom. You can pick whatever you want. Other people's choices don't directly impact where you're allowed to place pieces, but there's still this restraint, like you have to meet these requirements for placing your action markers. So yeah, I think it's interesting. And obviously these are the action selectors. And so this is what the core of the game revolves around. Every turn you're picking an action, but you also have to keep in the back of your mind, okay, I'm going to have to take something in that row at some point. So here's my options in that row. Should I take it now? Should I do it later? So it's just another dimension to picking what action you're going to do for your turn. Got to plan ahead more.
Well, hey, I'm not going to lie, man, but I just spaced off for that whole thing. So
the thing is, like, either you were ready with that joke or you straight up did space out the whole time. I'm not sure.
I'll leave that up to the viewer to decide.
All right.
All right. Well, my action selection game, yeah, it's Scythe.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm so disappointed to say that.
It's kind of a
I guess
letdown.
I wanted to pick something
It's kind of a
more
shoe-in.
unique. But at the same time, like, it's an incredible game, and it's a really great representative. I keep saying that. I should stop saying that.
What'd you say, ambassador earlier? Let's go with that.
It is
that
an
one a few
ambassador of action selection. Yeah. Action efficiency, if you will. But yeah, that's all you do. You got 4 actions, and you pick one of them, and then you do the stuff. And that, Nate, is what action selection is all about.
But in Scythe, every action has 2 sides to it.
Indeed. And every board is different. I mean, again, we've talked about this. We need to start picking more games, Nate. Nate, you need to pick better games that we haven't talked about before.
All right, well, let's just move on then, because I'm tired of talking about Scythe. All right, our number 5 is something that you might not think of as a mechanism, actually, but BGG classifies it as one, so we went with it. Variable player powers.
Nate, that's not a thing.
Well, it is a thing, but a lot of people would argue maybe it's not a mechanism, but I would argue back, and BGG agrees. My choice for this was not the first thing that came to my mind. There were certain ones like Root, for example, was like the first one I thought of. To me, that's the game like, this is like variable player powers the game, Like that's what it revolves around. But then I realized Gloomhaven does an exceptional job of implementing variable player powers. Because, first of all, Gloomhaven has like 20 different characters or more I think. And all of those characters has their own deck of action cards, large deck of action cards, that are completely unique from all the other characters in the game and all their decks of action cards. And so every player in the game has a very different style. It's not just offensive and defensive. There's so many different other angles. Some characters might focus on loot. Some characters might focus on specific types of defense and types of offense, or they might interact with other players more, whereas some characters might be more independent. It's just, absolutely incredible. Like I said, not the first thing that comes to mind, but when you realize, you're like, oh, actually, variable player powers is like the core of the game here also, So, yeah.
That's a good choice. I didn't really think of that, but yeah, that's actually a great ambassador, as the kids say.
All right, you have one more use, and then you have to come up with another synonym.
All right, okay, thanks, man. Hey, I'm curious, did you consider Stronghold for this category?
Ooh. Well, I made my list about 2 months ago, so I don't remember.
All right. Would you consider Stronghold for this category?
Yeah, I definitely would. I guess I would consider it. It could be a runner-up. I'll allow it.
I almost wouldn't, in a way. I brought it up because I would, but then I started thinking about it because I feel like variable player powers implies that there's a common ground that you're working within, but then other people can do unique things. And the thing about Stronghold is that you have 2 completely different objectives and different sides, different resources, different everything. I guess Root is kind of similar in that way, but...
Well, no, because Root,
anyway.
Everyone's trying to still get whatever, 25 points or 30 points, so...
There you go. So, I don't know. I'm curious if you looked up Stronghold, if it would have variable player powers.
Variable player powers
I feel like it would.
Is a mechanism that grants different abilities and or paths to victory to the players.
Well then, it does qualify.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I didn't choose it for my pick.
You didn't?
No. Can you guess my pick? I feel like you'd have a good chance at guessing this.
Spirit Island?
Yeah, baby.
Hey.
Spirit Island. I think an incredible example of... See, example. I use that
there we
this
go.
time.
All right.
Instead of representative or ambassador. So I have a couple of uses out of it. Yeah. Yeah, Spirit Island. Any player you play as, any spirit you play as, comes with not only a different board, which has a little bit of a different progression for the things it unlocks. You also have a few different unique abilities that makes your overall play very different from everyone else. But on top of that, you even start, because it is, I just realized this is a deck building game. Your 4 starting cards are different from every other player's starting cards. So you have like 3 different avenues that are unique and that you can slowly build on and do different things.
I am not a fan of the deck building hand management aspect in Spirit Island. It feels clunky to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a core mechanic of it, so you can't get away from it. But maybe that's why you don't like the game particularly much.
I don't love it or hate it, It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
We should give it another play. Have we actually played my copy of it?
No, we haven't. So if you...
All right.
That'd be fun, because I think Anna would like that too, because it's a game that like you have to be very, very analytical. And so I think she'll like it.
And it's hard to win.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick though, for sure, because that's a big part of that game. That game would be terrible without variable player powers. It'd be Pandemic.
What would it be?
It'd be Pandemic.
It would just be Island. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
One of our...
Hit us up.
Yeah.
One
of our...
Hey,
whoa.
Stop it.
One of...
Worker placement games. What'd you pick?
One of our... Yeah, okay, whatever. I think this...
I already said it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. By the way, do you know what the highest ranked... Without looking, don't look. What is the highest ranked, according to BGG? Okay. What's the highest ranked worker placement game?
Highest ranked worker placement game. Let me think. Dune Imperium.
It's Dune Imperium. Yeah, that shocked me. Dune Imperium's number 8. I would have thought a worker placement game actually would have, been higher. I'm sure they have been in the past, but yeah.
Higher than 8? That's super high.
Yeah,
dude.
but worker placement is like one of the top 3 mechanisms of all time. So, and that's objective. All right, my choice here might be a crossover actually, because you adore this game, and I find the worker placement system in Underwater Cities to be amazing. It's actually very similar to Dune Imperium.
Yeah.
But yeah, the worker placement in Underwater Cities is you play a card and a worker at the same time, and if they match colors, they don't have to, which is really cool. But if they do match colors, you get to do the card as well as the action space that you picked. You always get the action space. But then what's cool about it, and we've talked about this, of course, but there's 3 different sections on the board, 3 different colors, and the spots on the board are like the green ones. I don't remember exactly. I think the green ones are pretty weak. The red are moderate, and the orange are like really strong powers. And then the cards are reversed. Yeah. So the orange cards are pretty weak. Red is still moderate, and green is pretty powerful. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 here because it's dependent on the card play as well. But it's very much, they're very much combined together here, and I think it's a beautiful system. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think that's a great pick. I mean, Underwater Cities would be, according to my top 100 list, my highest ranked worker placement game. But I didn't want to pick it. I went with Champions of Midgard because I felt like Champions was just a good example of, a worker placement. Kind of boils down to you've got your workers, you have the mechanism where you can gain an additional worker later, you're boxing out other people, going in different places, and then there's plenty of avenues to victory for how you're going to get your stuff to get your points,
I think because we approach this list a little differently, I didn't consider it because it's a little too straightforward. It's a little too basic, the worker placement is. So.
Which is why I picked it.
Yeah, all right.
So
can't really fight each other on this list, can we?
But we can fight each other in Champions of Midgard.
All right. No, you can't, actually.
Except we can fight monsters. Never mind. Let's go play Stronghold. Take us 4 hours.
Are you done with whatever stuff you're talking about, Cody, or do you want to?
Hey, you know what? I was done recently.
Great. Okay. So before we move on to our 7 and 8, I feel like we need to establish a little kind of common ground here. How would you...
Okay.
And there's no right answer to this because I did a lot of research a couple months ago. I forgot.
Yes, there is. And I will tell you.
I did a lot of research on this a couple months ago, and I've forgotten most of it now. But
all right.
everything I looked at, there were good arguments for a lot of different perspectives on this. So, Cody, in your opinion, how would you differentiate engine building and tableau building?
So, all tableau builders are engine builders, I would argue. Maybe there's some exception that I have not yet conceived. And so, viewers, please tell me about that. But not all engine builders are tableau builders. It's like squares and rectangles. So tableau building, to me, which is also just the right answer, is you're building a thing in front of you, usually from scratch. Usually there's nothing in front of you, and so you're adding pieces of an engine that didn't exist before, like independently, and then you're putting them all together. Sometimes you can have some sort of base you're working from that maybe you're building on top of, but to me, that's still a tableau builder. An engine builder is... basically, I think you're maximizing a system overall. You're not necessarily putting stuff out in front of you. You can, and that's still an engine builder. But that's where it becomes exclusive from a tableau, is that there's things you're already referencing like on the game. Like I'm trying to think of a good example of an exclusive engine builder.
Exclusive with no tableau elements?
With no tableau.
Maybe
yeah.
Dinosaur Island? Because I would definitely call that engine building for sure. You run your park every round.
You're putting stuff out in front of you, but that's really just more of a placeholder, if anything, for like where to put your dinosaurs, kind of puzzle building. So that's how I would differentiate it. Do you have a different perspective to
Actually,
offer?
no, in general, surprisingly, I kind of 100% agree. So there goes our interesting conversation.
Aha!
But I think in general, you kind of... I think I 100% agree. I saw a lot of differing opinions online about some people saying they're exactly the same. It's just different words for the same thing. And other people are like, whoa, they're totally different, you know? But yeah, because...
Ooh, I got an example. Like Scythe. Scythe is a great example. That is an engine builder. That is not a tableau builder. Because you already have your board, you already have all the stuff there. You're just moving the pieces around to try to make it more efficient in combination with moving your troops around on the map. Okay. So there.
Good. Better example than Dinosaur Island. Although I feel like Dinosaur Island is an engine builder that you wouldn't come to mind right away when you think of engine builders, but I think it definitely is. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk about tableau builders. This is a bit of a weird choice. I think... you love this game, but I don't think you would have picked it. Definitely would not have picked it for this topic. In the Hall of the Mountain King is my pick for tableau building, because you build your tableau of your little resource pyramid, and okay. There's nothing else in the game that could even remotely be defined as tableau building.
I thought you were talking about the polyominoes because you're putting those out in front of you. That's not really tableau building.
No. The resource triangle or the resource pyramid is straight up tableau building, and it's a very cool trickle down kind of system of producing resources. So yeah, I love it. Yeah,
I guess I didn't really think of that as a good
not
option here, but
it's not.
I commend your choice.
It's not the core mechanism of the game. It might be the most interesting part of the game. In fact, I think it is. But it's not maybe the first thing that comes to mind when you think about, that game. So.
Yeah, I love that game. We've talked about this before. It does not get enough love.
For sure.
So go give a try to Jay Cormier and Graham Johns in the Hall of the Mountain King. Yeah. Ares Expedition, that's what I got. Not much gravitas or build up for that, but that beautiful, if not perfect example, Nate, of tableau building, because you start with nothing and you slowly put stuff in front of you that does other stuff later in the game. And I think I put that very well.
Yeah. Whatever.
What's that hesitation I detect? How are you going to argue that Ares Expedition is not a good tableau builder?
No, it is. It's just not as good of a tableau builder as base Terraforming Mars, I think. I think the cards are more interesting in base TM. But yeah, no, I agree. It 100% qualifies, and it's a good, and especially from your point of view, which is why I said we can't really, have too much saying the other person's wrong, because yeah, from your perspective of kind of thinking of a little bit more good representatives, then yeah, it's very straightforward. It's a very clean tableau building system. So yeah, it's just that I, don't like it that much, I guess.
We need to play with the expansions
For sure.
that we got, or one expansion specifically where you switch out all of your phase cards.
Yeah,
Because that really helps.
I remember
a
you
lot.
being pretty disappointed though by the content in the expansions.
It was pretty pathetic. Other than that component,
right.
yeah.
All right, and then on to engine building. I had to do it, man. I wanted to stay away from like the obvious shoe-in answers, but I had to put furnace for this for engine building because, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, like there's two aspects of the game. It's either card drafting, or it's card drafting and then it's engine building, and there's nothing else in the game. And so
Yeah.
the engine building is kind of stripped down in this game, but it's also very puzzly. And I like that every time you run your engine, you can rearrange it freely, however you want. Very cool. Also a tableau builder, of course.
Yeah. Unless, Nate, you're playing the advanced variant where once you put down a card, it has to stay where it's at.
Not a fan, but I would do it again.
Which is brutal. Well, Nate, I anticipated that you might choose Furnace as your pick, and so I had it written down, but I'm going to go with my runner-up then, which instead is Underwater Cities, which, yes, we have spoken of, but we didn't really talk about the engine building aspect of it, because you have a little board where you're putting down cities connected with little buildings that have different effects and bonuses, and then roads that will also give you some income. And you're spreading out, so every couple of rounds you trigger an income, and then you get all the stuff from your cities and your buildings, and you get points. I think it's a great example of engine building.
Yeah,
because not only that, but there are some permanent cards you're playing too that have ongoing effects.
Yeah, at first I thought that was going to be your only point, were the cards that have ongoing effects. And I was going to say, to me, that doesn't really... Because to me, an engine builder, and maybe this was part of your definition, maybe not. To me, an engine builder is something that you run at certain points throughout the game.
Yes.
It's not something that
well
just
said.
has random effects when certain things come up, but it's something that you build and then you run. So Galaxy Trucker, right? That's a straight up engine builder. You build your ship and then you run it through the engine and see what happens, And so to me, the cards don't really, they don't come into the, like for Underwater Cities, the cards don't really, I wouldn't include them in the engine building part of the game. But I would definitely say the map part that you're building is, because there's set times in the game where you run that engine and you produce stuff. Whereas the cards can kind of happen at different intervals, Oh, but some of them are on production, actually. That's true.
Yeah, some of them are production, some of them are action-based too. So if you're going to activate an action, like that's a component of your engine that you're trying to utilize.
Yeah, okay, I guess so. And maybe a little side aspect to the engine.
Yeah, you could be right, Nate, if you weren't so wrong.
Story of my life. All right. Hand management. This one's interesting.
This was an odd one to think about.
I definitely did not pick a game you've played, so there's no danger of crossover here.
Same for me to you, actually.
Okay. My pick is World Without End. I don't know how well you remember.
Yeah,
okay, that's fair. World Without End, the hand management aspect is you have 12 cards in your hand. There's 4 rounds in the game. Every round, you're going to play 6 of your 12 cards. But you don't get to keep them all in your hand. Every turn, you have to play a card and discard a card from your hand. And so you have to be thinking ahead the whole time, kind of ranking the cards in your head for the round and the stuff that's going on and the position you're in the game, which cards are most valuable to be played and which ones are least. Because they're all, like pretty much all of the time, they're all valuable cards. So you have to analyze your position in the game at that time, and then decide which cards are definitely worth playing, which ones you can okay, this one's probably not super useful this round, we'll discard it. Sometimes it comes back to bite you, but that's part of the fun of the game. Sometimes you're something happens and you're like, oh man, I wish I still had this card in my hand, but I got rid of it because I didn't see that coming. I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think the other person was going to do this or that. So I absolutely love that. I think it's a kind of stressful, but very phenomenal implementation I use that word too much. Of hand management.
That's right. I get you. Yeah, never played it, as we established, but I would if maybe you buy it, because I don't really want to buy it. Will you buy it, Nate?
I wouldn't buy it brand new, but I think if I found a used copy, I'd be willing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. While you were droning on about World Without End, I was considering other words I could use instead of representative or
Bit late
ambassador
for that,
or
but
example. Okay. Well, I mean, we still have 2 items left, and I have the perfect word, Nate. This game is a paragon of hand management.
Paragon of hand management.
Yeah, dude. It's a legit word. It's a real word.
I actually don't think I know what it means.
It's, according to Google, it's like a perfect example of a given thing. I think it has a context more around it of being paradigm.
How's that different from paradigm? This is the most time I've ever said this within the span of an hour and a half, this word.
Paradigm definition. A paradigm, Nate, is a typical example of something. Whereas a paragon is differentiated by being a perfect example of something.
Maybe we should just use para.
There you go.
Like interchangeably. I wonder what para means.
Para whatever. Yeah. Para. Doesn't that mean like a cross?
But what about paradigm versus epitome?
Parachute.
Well, parallel.
Come on. Parachute. Para, Latin base.
This is good content.
What's it mean?
Never know where this podcast is going to go.
From Latin, parare, meaning to make ready.
To make ready.
This doesn't make sense. Etymology of paradigm. Hey, viewer, thanks for sticking around. Thank you for letting us waste your time.
I think in the future we should stick to what we know more, which would be board games.
Oh, it's not Latin, dude. It's Greek. Oh. Para, meaning beside.
Beside? That doesn't help. Makes sense for parallel, but... All right, anyways. What's your hand management pick?
My paragon of hand management is Hanamakoji.
Snore.
What?
I don't know anything. I don't remember anything about Hanamakoji either, so.
That's all right. All you need to know is that is a paragon of hand management.
My number 10.
That's really all you're doing. No, that's really all you're doing the whole game. Is every round you get dealt a certain number of cards. I forget how many it is, but then you always draw a card at the end of your turn. But in the middle, you're trying to figure out what cards you use with 4 specific actions that you have to use one after the other. And you're trying to put some cards down for your side, but then you have to give some cards to the other player. So it's like 2 levels of hand management, because some of these cards will help you, some of them will help the other person. And you're using the values of those cards to battle over 7 different geishas, I think, that's in the middle of the game. And whoever gets the majority of the geishas wins.
I promise to be more interested in this when we play it together.
All right. It's pretty good. 2-player, very quick.
Okay, my number, the last topic, contract fulfillment.
Your final paragon?
My final epitomatical?
Epitomological?
No.
Is that a word?
Not epitomological. Okay, no more of this. All right. If we want to start an etymological podcast, we can do that. All right, let's not try and make it this one.
There's epidemiological, but that's about epidemiology.
I bet it is. Okay, my number 10 has already been mentioned on a different topic. And I'm surprised that you picked this game for tile placement instead of contract fulfillment. Because to me, the contract fulfillment aspect of Akrotiri is stronger, affects the game more than the tile placement aspect. They work in conjunction with each other.
Except for the fact that you have to place the tiles in order to fulfill the contract.
You do, but all of this stems from the contracts that you have in your hand. They determine how you place your tile. So, I don't know. It's a valid choice for both, I guess, and maybe you just haven't played very many good tile placement games, so I'll allow it.
No, not really.
But yeah, everything you said about it for tile placement applies to it for contract fulfillment as well. You have contracts in your hand that tell you have to build You have to build your little temples on islands that meet the requirements based on the colors that are on the board from the tiles that have been placed. It sounds kind of boring when you describe it that way, but it's definitely a phenomenal game. Love it. Small experience, plays quickly, but a very interesting, very good design.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us how the game works?
Nah.
All right. My choice, my final paragon for contract fulfillment is Honeybuzz, which we have played just once, I think.
No, I played it twice.
Or was it twice? You played it twice? Okay. I mean, you can get points in other ways, but that it really is a central mechanic of the game. I suppose you're doing lots of other things like, it's worker placement, of course. There's a little bit of engine building in there. But it's all working towards trying to produce proper honey in order to satisfy the needs of the woodland creatures and the contracts that they offer. I didn't want to go with viticulture because it's, viticulture gets enough love. You know what I mean?
Anyways.
Honeybuzz needs a little bit of love. Yeah, unless you have Tuscany, of course. Of course. So yeah, Honeybuzz. Did you enjoy it?
Like, I don't dislike it. I've played it twice now. I think it's a good design, but it feels kind of empty. Like, I don't feel like I had a lot of fun at the end, you know?
I think that this is a good gateway game to teach people.
I think so. It's a little, I feel like there's some concepts that are a little advanced for gateway.
There's some advanced concepts, but at the same time, it teaches you worker placement on a moderately simple level. It teaches you basic contract fulfillment. And I mean, those are two huge themes among Euro games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I actually taught it to a couple people recently, and I feel like they took to it pretty well.
That's fair.
So, yeah. And now that we've been recording
An hour and a half.
That's got to be a new record. I know one of our most recent episodes was like an hour 20, but we definitely beat it with this one.
Yeah, for sure. But to be fair, it's been 2 months since we recorded. But from now on, Cody, I think from now on, we will continue recording on at least a weekly basis. So
I think so too. I will commit to this as long as you don't travel around the world anymore.
Just once more.
All right. Well, do you have any other final sweet ideas for our listeners?
I feel like maybe it hasn't been mentioned in a while, so some good ideas would be liking, subscribing, even commenting is good. Definitely following, definitely rating as long as it's 4 or 5 stars. I wouldn't recommend anything less than that.
Yep.
And
not for this show.
And even emailing is good. You can email us at tabletopshop23@gmail.com.
Yeah, boy.
Any interaction is good. We like to know that people are listening. I mean, we know you are anyways because we can see our analytics, but it's nice to interact with the people that are enjoying our content. So, anything is nice.
Yeah, reach out. We get some correspondence with y'all, but we know there's some listeners who've probably been around for a little bit that don't really reach out. Hey, just say hi. We'll say hi
Literally
back.
just an email.
We're sort of
just
nice.
An email with hi or a comment with hi. All right? And I will respond with my opinions on engine building versus tableau building.
And I'll just post a meme.
All right. There's your incentive.
And remember, the yellow cards in Space Base are immediate use points, and Nate was very, very wrong. Hey listeners, you're still here after all this time. What are you doing with your life?
I expect to see at least 3 comments that say hi between now and our next release.
Please, otherwise we will stop the podcast. Although, Nate, we might be digging a hole for ourselves here if people don't like the podcast, so they specifically don't say hi.
I have enough emails that I can cover us if we need to.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, peace out, dogs.